many college campuses have a campus president. And this is what we think. We think of the president as a very important individual. But I know I've had a few students ask me, what does a president do? A few family members ask me that. And so Audrey is here to tell us about the role of a college president.
As Milyon said, I'm Audrey Bilger, and I have been the Reed College president since July of 2019. I have made my way through several liberal arts colleges before I arrived here in the capacity of a faculty member for 25 years, dean of the faculty. And that's sort of one of the ways that one ends up in a college presidency, is having spent a long time in higher ed and gotten to the place where one, myself in this case, believes that one has something to contribute to help lead an institution. So I look forward to talking with you today about being college president at Reed College and having you think about what it would be like to join us here at Reed.
So why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about how you became the president of Reed, and after that, tell us what a college president does.
I doubt that there's anyone who, when they're wee bit of a thing, it says to themselves, "I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a college president." And I certainly wouldn't have. And in fact, when I was a kid growing up in Oklahoma, I didn't even know that places like Reed College existed. What I will say is that the path for me to becoming a college president, as I mentioned earlier, was having spent decades in the academy, been very committed to liberal arts teaching and the communities that liberal arts colleges provide to everyone who's involved in them. And so I really, after spending 2.5 decades as a faculty member in English, first at Oberlin College, then at Claremont McKenna College, I started thinking about doing work on an administrative level and became the dean of the faculty at Pomona College. So the Claremont McKenna, Pomona are two of the 5 Claremont colleges. And then I got the call. I got nominated to become the 16th president of Reed College, and I could not resist. And the connection has been profound. As I said, going back to myself as a kid in Oklahoma, I was my mom would always say, "Where's Audrey? Oh, she's got her nose in a book. She's got her nose in a book." And so I was a reader. I cared a lot about words and ideas, and I was a writer. And so I was a kid who, in some ways, was looking for a community of people who would similarly care about creativity and learning and feel inspired by that. And I did find, when I went to Oklahoma State as an undergraduate, I ended up studying philosophy, which naturally was a pretty small band of students at Oklahoma State, really tiny number of students studying philosophy at this large state institution. And I as I made my way down the path, I can't emphasize enough that what I find so special about liberal arts education is the small scale, the connections between the faculty and their students. Reed is a perfect liberal arts college. Students they're exposed to a range of disciplines and fields they can explore. For every student who knows when they come to college exactly what they want to do, there are 20 or more who are in full-on exploration mode. And I don't think there's a better place to do that exploring than a liberal arts college.
We know that the president of a college leads. What does that mean for, practically speaking? Students are here, and how will they engage in the president, and what do you do?
Well, practically speaking, it means a lot of meetings. I think just as the educational model is one that often takes place in small learning environments, the conference at Reed, sitting around a conference table or meeting for coffee at the Paradox Cafe or out in the quad. Being a college president means seeing people face to face, talking about what's happening at the college, what needs to happen, both in terms of the operations, how to keep the lights on, are the lights on, getting everything up and running and working. But also I'd say, and this is where that the quality of fit and belonging as a president to the institution, it has to be immersive. So it was not in my path to take any presidency, and this really was the presidency for me. And you have to love the institution if you're the college president, and that is no labor for me at all. I love this institution, and so the other big thing that you do as the college president is you represent the institution. Having student office hours is important for me. And then also, because we're a small college, students can get in touch and get an appointment. Or I when I'm walking around, which I am on campus walking around every day, I run into students, I talk to them. I want to make one note, Milyon, about the culture at Reed College. And I've noted this before, is that in every other place I had been Dr. Bilger or Professor Bilger,
Right.
Or Dean Bilger when I was Dean of the faculty at Pomona. And then when I came to Reed, in the culture at Reed, everyone's first name. And so it's the biggest job I've had. And it's the job where I don't need to wear my honorifics on my sleeve. And I love it. I love it.
Right.
I love being on campus and having students see me and say, "Hi, Audrey."
Folks are sort of curious, what is distinctive about Reed? What makes this place unique?
Yeah, it's something that I'm fully informed about. And among the things that I think make Reed distinctive is that there's a sort of joke among people who go around and take tours at college campuses that sometimes you could close your eyes and you could be anywhere. And I have seen that before, where there's a sort of generic liberal arts college. Reed is not a generic liberal arts college. We have a really distinctive program. Part of that has to do with having a first year humanities core. All students take this humanities core and explore ancient traditions and explore the Harlem Renaissance and Mexico City. And so that's something that I think is quite special about Reed College. And then there's the sense in which nobody could be on the Reed College campus and imagine that you were anywhere other than the Pacific Northwest. It's gorgeous. There are trees. It's green. It's a very, very special location. For Reed, one of the advantages of being both in the city of Portland, or in the southeast quadrant of Portland, it also means that the faculty, the staff live nearby. I'm in walking distance from campus. Many faculty are. Everybody can get here pretty quickly. And so that does create an even greater spirit of togetherness. People show up for things. And so I think that that's another distinctive feature, Milyon, that you don't see everywhere.
I see a few questions sort of about identity and diversity, but I first want to ask about identity from your perspective. How do you bring your identity to this position of president?
Identity is authenticity, right? How do you bring your true self? It turns out for me, again, that the fit with Reed is perfect. The environment you see me in is a joint environment for my wife and me. We both love music, so it's nice to be in a community where that's also something that people take seriously. I mentioned being first gen. And I was first gen in the 1970s at Oklahoma State, when everybody was pretty much first gen then at that school. And I really came to understand even more fully what it meant to be coming from a first generation background when I went to graduate school at the University of Virginia. So that, that feature of identity for me is one that I feel, I feel like Reed College is simultaneously incredibly intellectual and down to earth. And that is really important. In terms of broader diversity, and, particularly as we think about anti-racism and anti-social injustice, thinking about bringing together a community where people are coming from diverse backgrounds, often coming, as is true for most of the country, from places that are more segregated than they have been for probably 20, 30 years. This country, those who are coming from this country has gotten more segregated. And I also know that our international students have different kinds of culture shock, even when they encounter the ways that the race is considered in the United States. So when we think about coming together as a diverse campus, what often we'll hear from outside is, we'll hear people criticizing us for things that we supposedly get wrong. I think we get a lot of things right, and at the same time, nobody's getting this right, and we have to just keep working on it. But that commitment to working and to constantly improving and paying attention and doing the work, that is something that we are committed to here at Reed.
Mm-hmm. And I've also sort of gotten more quantitative questions so folks can get can picture what the campus might, the appearance of the campus. And what I'll share with our audience, I don't have exact numbers, breakdowns for particular ethnicities, but I'll say of our students who disclose their ethnicity among our domestic students, roughly 2/5 of our students, so almost 40%, identify as students of color. And of our overall student body, about 15% of our students identify as international students. And that's usually, I should say, anywhere between 10 and 15%. And so this is a campus that looks like the United States. Students travel further to come to Reed than any other college. So you'll meet folks from all over the country. That's sort of unique for us. So I think that also matches the community that folks see here. So many of our viewers will recall an article that they received a few weeks ago. You and Cheryl went about campus hanging hearts from trees. This is a fun idea, but maybe not something every college president does. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, after months and months of the pandemic, with its relative social isolation and everyone masked, it did feel like we might become downhearted. And so I recalled this project that one of my former students, so again, a student I kept up with from 10, 15 years ago, who lives across the river in Vancouver, Washington, who had created this heart project with her late wife. And it just seemed to me like I needed to get some more of those hearts. And I think because of the pandemic, she wasn't able to make 100 of them for me, which I would have loved to have just really covered the campus. But it seemed also that it would be whimsical and fun to put up whatever we have randomly around campus and just let that be. And we actually started doing it back in November, and over the course of about 6 weeks, we ended up putting all of the hearts up. But for me, I will say this, that it has been one of my tenets to lead with the heart. Because when I talk about the love of learning, I mean the love of learning, passion for learning. And then I also will say that in our community at Reed, we have a community of care. We would not have done so well during this pandemic if we hadn't committed early on and really stuck to caring for one another. And so the hearts were a representation of that, and to a kind of love letter hanging on trees.
Can you talk about some of the ways in which the campus supports and sponsors community?
Well, in terms of creating community, there are always an abundance of activities on campus, and I like to attend as many as I can, and sometimes I'll go with Cheryl. So it's nice just to show up and be there and be in the mix. So that's one way. I would say that there are different sorts of rituals that we have at Reed. Some that I was able to participate in the 7 months before we went into the pandemic mode, including my first semester going out to witness the thing called the thesis parade. So this was, for the seniors who had turned in their thesis, to joyfully parade through campus in celebration of that accomplishment. There are ways in which we come together in places like music performances, or to see our really talented student actors perform. This time last year, we had there was a mock kind of March Madness brackets basketball game series that Cheryl and I went to. I think series lets you know that I'm not coming from an athletics background.
Right.
But those kinds of things. I do think that to be participating in the life of the college is it's one of the great privileges of being Reed's president.
Certainly. You mentioned something earlier that I just want to jump on before we lose that thread, and it's leading through COVID. Many of the folks who are with us have seen how we have thrived, while under a pandemic. And you were here for, I don't know how long before COVID struck.
7 months.
I'd love to hear a little bit about that experience for you.
Yeah. And let me just say to all of you also, my heart goes out, and this has been such a strange time on our planet for all of us, and for those of you who are in high school, having had this last year plus be disrupted in the way that it has, for parents, for counselors, for everyone. We haven't lived through anything like this, and so it was unimaginable when it landed, and we had to just walk through it step by step. What really sustained me and continues to sustain me is this abiding faith in what a small, really caring community can do when we put our minds to it. And just lots of people over the first months came together to imagine how we would be able to have in-person instruction safely on campus, how we could come together in whatever configurations we could to help students come to Reed, and for those first year students start their college education at Reed. And one thing that I'll say motivated everybody working on the plans for the fall of 2020 was thinking about our students, whatever year the students were, just thinking, what can we do to make it possible for us to come back together? And so then the thing I'd mentioned earlier was that one of the things that people said that the summer of 2020 was, well, you got to worry about the students. You can't trust the students. The students are going to not adhere to health and safety protocols. And I just thought, I've been at Reed long enough to get a sense of how the students are. And I believe our students will do this, because what we all understand is that you practice the safety protocols, not only for yourself, but maybe even more so for others. So, and it proved to be true that students really did pay close attention, and we've been quite fortunate. We also, really invested in testing so that we were able to do surveillance testing, a phrase I didn't even know 12 months ago, and do the kinds of things that you need to do so that if there is a presence of the virus, we could detect it and make sure that we're containing it. So we have been quite fortunate, and as we find our way out of this pandemic, I have announced just this week that we plan to be in person in the fall, and we will be doing the work that we've been doing throughout this, monitoring the numbers, paying attention to make sure that we can do this safely.
That's excellent. Audrey, if you had to sort of think about, if we use 2 or 3 words to describe a Reed student. So let's play a game. I'll come up with 2 or 3 words to describe a Reed student, what I think they're looking for. And they can be phrases, because I don't know if we can just use words. Families are really curious about this. So maybe you and I can go back and forth and share some of the expressions we think that captures the essence of who they are.
Sure. So I tend to use a phrase, and my phrase is the opposite of diffident, meaning the opposite of diffident is detached and too cool to show that you care. Read students show that they care. And so I love that. Read students ask questions, they think critically, and they find ways to speak up.
I'll say diverse. I think there are these expressions that people use to describe read students, but if you sat in the cafeteria, the people who are sitting at the table may not have sat together in high school, but they're from all walks of life. They all have varying interests, and they find this passion for ideas. That's something they all have in common, and that's how they connect. So, Audrey, can you talk a bit about how we prepare students for life after read?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I'm a huge fan of our Center for Life Beyond Read, and I encourage you to visit the webpage and start to explore some of the tools that they have. The Center for Life Beyond Read seeks to connect with students as early as possible in the first year, and students should feel free to connect even before the first year. So that students often connect over the summer with the Center for Life Beyond Read. Something that the center seeks to do is to help students identify internships, research and grant opportunities, and then also the kind of counseling that helps them translate what they're learning in the classroom into things they can talk about when they interview for jobs or positions, but also I think to recognize how to value what they're learning, because I don't think that there's a lot leading up to your college education that allows you to understand what do you do with this, what's valuable about it. And many read students take different paths for their own vocations and their what they want to do with their lives. And so we're always trying to help connect students who are here with Read alums and other kinds of resources that can help them figure that out.
That's great. Audrey, what do you think your vision for Read is in the near future?
Well, I am looking forward to the big party that we're going to have. They'll be dancing. We'll be out on
when
the
we get
great
the
lawn.
announcement.
Yeah, as we feel safer to come together in large gatherings. That's a vision I have, is to have everyone swirling around. In terms of Read's future, some of the most important things that I want us to keep doing at Read, we talked about diversity. The anti-racist work that we're engaged in is really important for the future of Read. I am somebody who believes that education is a public good, and this is a message that I feel has gotten lost, not really just in the 21st century, but even in that last decade of the 20th century. The idea that circulates is that students get a college education like something they can put on the wall or notch in the belt, or and that it's a sort of private good. And while it is enriching personally to everyone who comes through higher ed, the responsibility that we have as engaged members of society is one that I take very seriously, and one that resonates for me as I think about Read's future. We want to keep sending out into the world students who are able to engage with the world, ask questions about the world, and leave it better than they found it.
Certainly. Another thing that we also experience is the liberal arts sort of being under attack. And we've shared our Dean Olison, Kathy, who's our Dean of Faculty, her response to a recent Wall Street Journal article that sort of said, oh, Read is dumbing down grades, liberal arts in certain schools aren't really doing what they need to help students be successful. Many of our parents read that, and they'd like to hear a little bit from you about our response to that particular article.
Well, first I want to say is that the author of that article did not do their homework.
Nope.
If they had done their homework, they would realize that in saying that Reed has done away with grades, that is not true. Reed faculty do give grades for classes. We have a culture, though, where students, they don't give them out to students unless students ask for them. And instead, and anybody who teaches knows that this is hard. Instead of the grade, they give to the students written feedback and oral feedback. And then the student can take that and decide if they want to see what the grade is. But what this does is it separates the grade. It creates a little space between the grade and what should be more important is what are the students learning? What's the feedback they're getting?
Right.
So I think, coming from, I would say that many classroom teachers also don't, it's not their favorite part of the work grading, in the sense of assigning a kind of, this is the A, this is the A minus, the B plus, these gradations can be, it's not the best part of the work to say, you get this, you get that. To say to a student, though, you've really grown in this paper, and I can see that your argument is tighter, and you can also sharpen here, or this is a place where you went astray. That's deeply meaningful.
Right.
And so anyway, I will say that op-ed got my blood boiling, and so I was really happy when Kathy stepped in to write, to say that's not a description of the Reed academic program at all.
Yeah.
And so and I hope that all who, I say that all who know Reed admire and respect Reed, and I hope that there are people who were able to check out Kathy's letter and not take that op-ed at its word.
Perhaps you could share some of the success stories and talk a bit about, just really briefly, how you've stayed in touch with folks that you've taught, and how that happens just organically.
Yeah, well, so I mean, I'm old enough that email happened when I had already started being a college professor, and so email certainly is one of the ways that the people keep in touch. And then, some forms of social media have also been positive. And I will say, that the sort of outpouring of love and support when something happens, like your wife wins a Grammy, or you become appointed president of Reed College, to say, oh my gosh, this is so-and-so who took that class from me back in the year 2000. That is certainly one of the ways. I want to say too that my connections now to Reed alums are precious to me. And anybody I meet in the Reed community, whether they're here presently or they've been out for a year or 50 years, I'll ask them, what's your Reed story? What led you to Reed? What was your Reed experience like? And in collecting those stories, I feel like I take those in, and they contribute to my sense of the larger story of us. What this college is. A college is always a work in progress, and it's a composite of everyone who passes through its doors.
Can you just give us 2 sentences about why student success continues to be one of your priorities?
Sure, Milyon. It is so important to me that every student who comes to Reed knows that they are here because they belong here. And so it's really easy for, I've seen this for, again, decades, for students to arrive at Reed having come from a background where they were maybe the only one like them, or unique and special in their level of commitment. And then they're surrounded by lots of students who are also, one of the strongest students in the class, or somebody who also shares similar passions, and you can start to feel, like you might not belong. And what we really want to do is make sure that students know that they're seen, that we care about them. I think a lot about my own experience, feeling like I might have been behind because I didn't come from the level of preparation that even some of my friends had in terms of high school studies. And what's really important is that at a small school, there are always people here. You can ask for help. We have help available, and the academic program is rigorous. It's challenging. It's inspirational, and the goal is to help students come to the place where they achieve those goals and work at a very high level. So it's our responsibility to make sure that there are resources and supports. And again, that students know that Reed is where they belong.